Welcome back. Catalan President Carles Puigdemont is currently in exile in Belgium. Following his parliament's recent unilateral declaration of independence, he is accused of rebellion, sedition and embezzlement, criminal charges which could lead to him being imprisoned for up to 30 years. Today on this show, he turns the tables on his accusers and sets dramatic challenges for Spain, for Europe and for the Secretary-General of the United Nations. Speaking confidently in English, his fourth language, this is what he has to say. President Puigdemont, in the space of a few weeks, you've become one of the most famous politicians on the planet. But I want to start with explaining the man, the personality behind the public face. So, where did you grow up in Catalonia? When did you come to believe that Catalonia should be an independent country?
Well, I was born during the Franco's dictatorship, till 12 or 13 years old. So my first school was during this era, when, for example, my language, Catalan, was prohibited. I was an analphabet in my own language. Our poets, our authors, we don't know nothing about our culture, our country. After the Franco's death, there was a very huge movement, democratic movement. I feel that the world that starts at this moment, it's calling me. It's something about me and my future. I was engaged, not in order to make politics directly, but to have a compromise, engagement, political engagement, as a vital or intimated contribution to build a new society.
You started your career as a journalist.
Yes.
Before you moved into politics. What provoked you to move from journalism to recounting events to actually making events?
Well, you're a journalist now. You come from politics to journalist.
I've gone in the other direction.
Well, I'm still a journalist. In fact, I'm a member of the College of Journalists of Catalonia. My point of view, it's also still one of the journalist point of view. It's not a politician only. I think that helped me to make politics in our era. Our era is the era of the communications. So I think for politics it's very interesting, useful, helpful to have a journalistic or communication abilities, skills. I was journalist as a choose, as a decision to be also a democratic person, because journalist at this moment was a very powerful engine to contribute to develop a new system of freedoms. Without free of speech or press or opinion, there is no democracy. So I was a journalist in order to contribute to build a more stronger democratical society.
And it's now almost 2 years since you became president of Catalonia. I know when I was First Minister of Scotland, it was the most enormous honour and responsibility.
It was.
But over that period, how many times have you tried to get Sr. Rajoy, the government of Spain, to agree to an agreed democratic vote, a referendum, in the same way as I persuaded David Cameron in Scotland and Westminster back in 2012 to have an agreed formulation to discuss and decide an issue? How many times?
Well, obviously, Mr. Rajoy is not David Cameron, and Spain is not UK. Directly, I tried to offer to Mr. Rajoy directly twice, front of Mr. Rajoy during 2 meetings, and publicly a lot of times. In Madrid, I gave 2 conferences in Madrid directly, and I offer a political agreement in order to celebrate a referendum like you in Scotland has agreed with Mr. Cameron, and I offer an agreement about the date of this referendum. The question, the majority that we need in order to proclaim independence or not, and also, an agreement for a generation, despite the results. Well, they said me the last time that I proposed electly to Mr. Rajoy, they said, well, in reality, I can't and I don't want. So you don't want, because in politics, if you want, all is possible. Without violence, in democracy, in a democratic system, all is possible. And if there is a problem, and you recognize this is one of the most important problem in the Spanish state, you have the duty to put solutions on the table and to start discussions about how we can solve this problem.
But many people watching will be puzzled to hear your account, because the traditional view, the view of the Spanish government, the view internationally has been that the balance of opinion in Catalonia has been against independence. So if Senor Rajoy was so confident of that, then why didn't he agree to the vote?
Well, because probably that is not true. Because they know perfectly there are a huge majority in Catalonia that doesn't accept the current situation. The current relationship within Spain or Catalonia with Spain, it doesn't work. And secondly, because the half-Spanish state has any idea how could they solve this problem. I think there is another thing of problem. The mentality of the Spanish state, and particularly from Mr. Rajoy, is looks unity of Spain like a religion. It's not a political matter. It's a spiritual or religion question about faith. Mm-hmm. So there is an incapability, intellectual incapacity, to admit the possibility, the real possibility that Spain could be different in the future without Catalonia or without Basque Country, if the will of the people want this. They say, no, I can't imagine. It's like a person who believes in God can't imagine the God doesn't exist. So the Spanish has an idea about Spain, about the unity of Spain, or the Spanish state, like a religion.
But if that's the case, and let's say that there's an overwhelming majority of people in Catalonia, according to most opinions, who would want more power, but the balance of people between independence and not independence is much closer. It's a very close-run thing. So why wouldn't Senor Rajoy say, well, let's try and find an accommodation between the current situation and independence? And if he were to move in that direction, would that be something you were prepared to discuss?
Yes, but I think the Spanish political system has no project, not only for Catalonia, has no project for Spain. What is the project for the Spain in the future? No one knows it.
Let's take you to that day, that extraordinary day on the 1st of October. And tell me what your emotions were that day. On the one hand, there was the celebration of millions of your fellow country people coming out to exercise a vote for self-determination. On the other hand, there was the violence that we all saw on our television screens from the state police. So what were the conflicting emotions that you felt as President of Catalonia on that famous day?
Well, there was a day of the victory of Catalonia against the repression, the persecution of the Spanish state. 10 years before, Spain's police arrested several members of our government. They tried to catch our ballot boxes, papers of voting. And finally, the 1st of October, not only Catalan government, but also the Catalan society has obtained a very, very important democratic victory against the Spanish state. On the other hand, of course, there was a day of the extremely violence. I couldn't imagine the reaction like that from the democratic state in European Union. For me, it was unimaginable. It was not possible in my mind. We are prepared to confront some judicial decisions in order to discuss in the Constitutional Court about our decisions, but not the use of violence, because the people was very peaceful. All this process, come from the beginning of the process, was extremely peaceful movement, and we show in face of all the world our commitment to peace, on democracy. And the answer come from the Spanish state, for me, was a first signal that the things could be, the Spain could use the violence, the repression, in order to stop a democratic revolution. The only way that Spain could stop the Catalan Republic is not through the democracy. It's only with less democracy. And was a signal very, very, for me, it was a tragic day to do, because I see directly the violence in my face. The school in my hometown, there are a lot of injuries, with a very, very unsustainable violence.
And how do the independence movement in Catalonia manage to retain their discipline against such provocation? How it is deeply ingrained, your argument would be, in the pursuit of independence for Catalonia, that it must be a peaceful process at all costs?
Well, you know, it's not only my commitment, personal commitment, but the Catalan society, the Catalan people are deeply committed to use only the way of democracy, to not jump in the provocation of the Spanish state in order to transform the Catalan streets in like a war field. We must resist this provocation. So our victory for the future, because there are a lot of victories in this way, but the final victory depends in our attitude. If we fail, if we jump this provocation, and if you use our answer against the Spanish politics is the violence, we lose. And we don't want to lose. We want to achieve our process with success.
Now, the referendum showed an overwhelming vote for independence, but on a minority poll, because people either didn't or in some cases couldn't get to the polls. And there was no settlement with the Spanish state, no negotiation process. And therefore on the 27th, on Friday the 27th of October, the Catalan Parliament declared for independence. Tell me what it was like that day to see the declaration of a Catalan Republic.
Well, of course, it was not for us. It was a very serious moment, a very important moment, and very historical moment, for it was not a party. It was a moment for our generation, for our lives, for our biographies, for our also our commitment as politicians. It was a day of honor, because in this day we make possible all that we said before in our in front of our citizens. We said in our citizens, if we win, we will declare independence. And was a day of the truth, was a day of to make honor of our commitment. So it's also is a mix of different fields, several fields. On one hand was a day of happiness. The other was a day at we start at this moment a way and no way with a lot of problems, but we are confident to find a path, a single path, the only path that could make possible our independence, our republic, is dialogue, is democracy, is negotiation, is to sit in the table with the Spanish state, with the European institutions, to talk about this reality.
But the brave new republic really only lasted a weekend, because by the start of the next week, the Spanish judicial system rolled into action and took away the constitutional prize that Catalonia had gained.
Well, this mistake, in fact, starts a new era. In the end of this era, that will start a Catalan Republic. Because in these conditions, it's not possible. It's not possible. There is no future for Catalonia to remain in Spain in these conditions.
But Mr. President, you're now in a position where you're in exile with many of your ministers here in Brussels. Many of your other ministers are in jail in Spain. How can you be so confident about the outcome given that situation?
Well, have you seen the streets of Barcelona last week? Full of people demanding freedom. There is no one demands freedom for criminals. We are not criminals. We're politicians, are legal and legitimate representatives of Catalan people.
And are you confident that the forces of independence can prevail at the Catalan elections in December?
That is true. I'm confident in this victory. But I want to ask the Spanish state, and also the European authorities, if they will accept a result like this. If the independence movements or forces are the majority in the next Catalan parliament, is the Spanish state ready to accept?
So this is a direct challenge to Senior Rajoy. You're challenging him, given that he's called this election. Will he accept the result?
Exactly. Not only for the Mariano Rajoy, also for the European authorities. Because if the majority of Catalan people want to be independent, well, this is a real answer. This is a reality. And we must make politics with the reality, not with a fantasy. Of course, I think the Spanish government and the European authorities would like a Catalonia without people who want independence, but it's real. And if in the next elections we will win, that I propose to the Mr. Rajoy, Mr. Juncker, Mr. Tajani, to accept and to start a new era of dialogue and negotiation about this reality.
Many people have commented on the position in Catalonia, including the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, who has said that he wants to see a negotiated settlement. Were you encouraged to hear that statement from the Secretary General? And do you think that is a possible route to advance the Catalan cause?
Yes, of course. There is no possibility to achieve this process without negotiation. And I propose to talk about this also in the United Nations. If European institutions or United Nations are not ready to listen, to understand, to accept there is a reality in Catalonia, well, they don't make their job. And there is an opportunity to make something helpful for all of us from the United Nations, from Secretary General of the United Nations, is to provoke, to invite us to start talks and negotiations.
And what lesson do you think there would be for the international community if Catalonia was to achieve progress through the ballot box?
Well, it was a success of democracy above force and violence and this syndicate of interest, international interests. The force of the will of the people are always in the basis of all the big and the better transformations in our world.
But even if the movement of opinion is towards independence in Catalonia, given all that's happened, there'll still be a significant minority of people who don't believe in independence. What's your message as president to these people?
Well, I'm president of the all Catalan people, and I'm very proud to be president of a country with the people has a very strong commitment to democracy. The majority of Catalan people, it doesn't matter if they agree or not with the idea of independence, but the majority of Catalan people will accept a results come from a referendum or elections. So that is the message. I will respect, my government will respect the results of every decision come from the Catalan people.
Mr. President, you've challenged Senior Rajoy to accept the result of the December elections. You've challenged the European Union to respect democracy in Catalonia. You've said that the United Nations could see advantages in the success of a peaceful movement. But you're a president of a country. What is your message to the people of Catalonia?
Well, we must be confident, resilient, because we will win. We will succeed. Finally, democracy will prevail.
Mr. President, thank you so much.
You're welcome.